Welcome to Top Tier Wrestling, your ultimate destination for all things AEW and WWE. Whether you're a hardcore wrestling fanatic or just a casual viewer, we've got you covered with the latest news, in-depth show reviews, and our unfiltered opinions on everything happening in the world of professional wrestling. Join us as we dive into the high-octane action, dramatic storylines, and backstage buzz of AEW and WWE. Get ready to step into the ring with us and stay on top of the wrestling world. This is Top Tier Wrestling. Welcome to Top Tier Wrestling. Today's episode, we are going to be covering WWE's PLE Bad Blood. I'm your host, Josh the Exsanguinator, with my lovely co-host, Crimson Dawn.
Oh, shit!
Let's go. So, leading into Bad Blood, we had some remarkable setups, especially between the Bloodline on the SmackDown side and the definitive Bad Blood grudge match that takes place between Drew McIntyre and CM Punk. And opening the show, there was some contention, actually, a little bit about this for a moment from what I read online, that WWE wasn't sure whether they wanted Drew McIntyre and CM Punk's Bad Blood match to be the main event, or if they wanted the tag team match between Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns versus Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu of the, air quotes, Bloodline to be the main event of the show.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out that the way they decided to go with it is that Hell in a Cell between CM Punk and Drew McIntyre will open the show, and the tag team match between Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, and the Bloodline will close the show.
Yeah, and I actually kind of liked it that way. I feel like that was the right path to take. And can we just talk about that Hell in a Cell match?
We absolutely can. Once both competitors made their way to the ring after the cell that Hell in a Cell is about, slowly lowered down to the ring, they immediately get into it. Like this wasn't a match where they're doing any of the feeling out or anything like that. This was a grudge match between these two individuals, and they start out throwing big, heavy bombs at each other in the face.
Yeah.
And it was insanity. There were some tremendous spots in this match, and I would just like to say that Drew McIntyre and CM Punk definitely made one another bleed, but where CM Punk bled, Drew McIntyre gushed.
Yeah.
CM Punk started bleeding after Drew McIntyre found a wrench, which is kind of a weird implement to make somebody bleed with, but somehow it worked.
Yep.
He took a wrench to CM Punk's forehead, and CM Punk starts bleeding quite respectably. Like it's not the Cody trickle.
Yeah.
This gave CM Punk a right proper CM mask. He gave him a right proper Crimson mask. And to return the favor, there's a point where after Drew had been kind of dominating CM Punk in the ring, CM Punk rolls out of the ring, and when Drew goes to get him, he reaches through the middle rope to try and grab CM Punk by the hair and drag him back in. CM Punk takes a metal toolbox, swings it hard as he can, it looked like, over the top of his own head, smashing it into Drew McIntyre's head, like the top of Drew McIntyre's head. And this led to Drew McIntyre not bleeding, but literally gushing blood. Like it was a waterfall of blood running down Drew McIntyre's face. It was almost a bit too much. Like this actually had me wondering if Drew McIntyre was going to be able to continue, or if he might be at risk of like legitimate blood loss problems.
Yeah. Yeah, he lost a lot of blood, but I mean, CM Punk did what he said he was gonna do. You gotta give him credit for that.
Yeah, they
Um,
both definitely kept the promise of making one another bleed
yeah,
relatively, like, I would say early to mid of the match.
yeah. Listen, I got nothing but insults for CM Punk, but as much as I got nothing but insults for him, I have to give him credit when it's due, and he is due some credit here. He looked good. And hopefully he did not injure himself. Seriously, do not injure yourself, CM Punk. Don't do it.
Yeah,
Now he's not gonna do it because I said it now, guys. Because I said it, CM Punk is not gonna get injured. You's welcome.
no, I believe in the aftermath of this match, we saw who actually had the injury that required many,
Yeah.
many stitches.
Ooh wee.
Drew
Boy, that
McIntyre's
looks
the top of Drew
looks like an
McIntyre's head got split open. He looked like he
yeah.
needed what? What did it look like? Maybe 3-4 inches worth of stitches in the top of his head.
At least, man. Like basically the entirety of the top of his head is just stitched.
Yeah, CM Punk when he hit him like that was attempting to scalp the man. It was
with
crazy.
prejudice. Oh man, so he meant that.
Yeah, I mean it looked ferocious when Drew started bleeding proper. Like somebody had dropped a water balloon on the top of his head that was like filled with blood. It was just a wash of blood. It was crazy.
Yeah.
So much so that more so than some of the other matches I've seen anywhere. AEW doesn't matter where there was blood involved. Like the ref absolutely had to get like some towels out for these guys to wipe down the blood and kind of make sure they could continue on. Again, both men were bleeding, but Drew McIntyre was like next level bleeding. Like I was really worried about like how much blood he had gushed when he took that hit.
Yeah. And I like the nice little touch at the end of the match. And are we ready to talk about that? Or are we still talking about the match itself? Because I don't want to give anything away.
We can say this. The match had some real big highlights. I mean, there was a whole lot of punching and a whole lot of each man taking a moment to tell the other off. But as we proceeded through the match, aside from the two spots I've already mentioned with the wrench and the toolbox, we had a nice spot where CM Punk had put Drew McIntyre into a submission hold, and Drew got out of it by reaching for a wrench that was on the ground and knocking on CM Punk's ribs and arms, and that just looked like it would suck. I was like, ah. Then there was some nasty spots with the ring steps, like more than a few. Like Drew at one point literally smashed CM Punk in the face with the ring steps, and it looked ferocious. Yeah. But then later on, there was a spot where some claymores were thrown and some go to sleeps were thrown, but these weren't the match enders because somebody would either roll out of the ring or they were already outside of the ring when it happened. But there was a tremendously nasty looking spot where Drew McIntyre ran towards CM Punk with a claymore, and CM Punk kind of did the Samoa Joe and just walked like away from this move happening. Yeah. And that let Drew McIntyre just fly lower back first into the top corner of the ring steps. And that might have been the move that I thought looked the most brutal, honestly. I mean, yes, the toolbox to the head led to a lot of blood, but that move looked like it was a move that could have really screwed up Drew McIntyre's spine.
Yeah. 16 stitches, by the way, is what he needed.
16 stitches to the top of Drew McIntyre's head. Woof. And then to close out the match, CM Punk wraps a chain around his left leg and then proceeds to pick up Drew McIntyre and hit him with the go to sleep with a chain assist off the leg. And at that point in the match, it could have been anything. Like Drew was ready to just be over at that point, especially after flying back first into the stairs.
Yeah.
But this was just a cherry on top. Oh, there was also a point in the match where I think it was Drew got a black bag, which, having watched a lot of these matches, we typically think they contain thumbtacks, right?
Yeah. or glass or something
Right.
something horrible. Yeah.
Yeah, something terrible, like or even Legos, because
Legos,
no one
yes,
wants to
yes.
step on those. But what it turned out to be was a whole bunch of charm beads for like CM Punk's charm bracelet,
Yeah.
and Drew spills them all out onto the floor. And at one point, I think this was actually what led to it. If I remember the order of operations correctly, CM Punk misses the Claymore and drives himself back first into the stairs. And then CM Punk kind of gathers him and sets him up and gathers some of those beads and then force feeds them to Drew McIntyre. And
Yeah.
then after that, we get to go to sleep with the chain assist on the leg for the pin.
Yeah.
And so you have the deciding match, this Hell in a Cell between Drew McIntyre and CM Punk, with Punk as the winner. And everybody has heard over these few podcasts that's listened to some of our earlier stuff that neither of us are great big fans of CM Punk. But I absolutely agree. Got to give propers to Punk and to Drew, but specifically to Punk since we usually punk him out.
Yeah.
That he looked good in this match, and this was a solid Hell in a Cell match, and it was a good example. Again, I do like what AEW does over there, and I'm here for the extreme stuff. But this was an extreme match that would probably be more in the PG-13 category. Like this is a match that your teenagers could, absorb, and it's not going to give them nightmares.
Unless
it
they don't
wasn't
have
just,
unless they don't like blood.
and yeah, there was a lot of blood.
Yeah.
So I think this is a match that you could watch with like your teenage kids and they would get some, it would be wow. And it wasn't just extraneously gory for the sake of gore.
Yeah.
So it was good. It was a very good match. It had all of the brutality you were looking for. Again, the most brutal thing that I feel like I saw was Drew McIntyre literally just dropping himself lower back first into the corner of the ring steps on a missed Claymore.
Yeah.
That's the one where I'm like, well, it was. You remember when Drew could walk?
I did. Yes.
So that to me was even more brutal than the bloodshed stuff.
Yeah.
No,
I agree. That one looked like it would suck.
Mm-hmm.
Oof.
So
Yeah.
we open up Bad Blood with the spilling of a lot of bad blood, and this had a bunch of buildup and a whole bunch of pathos. Like this, CM Punk and Drew did a really good job of making you think that they hate one another.
They did, yeah.
So just a fantastic way to begin Bad Blood. And I certainly hope, I know Drew probably was the one that took the brunt of that, with the stitches and probably not walking right, after that particular bump. I mean, it looked mean. So kudos to both of those men. That was a heck of a way to start a PLE called Bad Blood. I think WWE made the right call to open Bad Blood with this match and to have the Bloodline storyline kind of tag team match close the show.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and it looked really good.
It did. And following that opening match, I believe we got some big announcements from Triple H. I'm trying to remember because I felt like we saw Triple H a couple of times that night.
Yeah.
I think he opened the show, but then he also had a middle segment where he came out to the ring and he said, starting at this year's Crown Jewel, there's going to be a new annual event in which the top men's and women's champions face off against each other to become the Crown Jewel champion. So it's whoever's the Raw men's champion and SmackDown's men's champion going head to head for it, and whoever is the Raw Women's Champion and SmackDown Women's Champion going for it. Now, here's the thing: I wasn't sure because he revealed one belt, and it was a heck of a looking belt. Like it looked like it was crusted in diamonds and everything. It was crazy looking. But is it one belt that all four of those people are competing for? Because I don't know how the women, like whoever wins the women's match and whoever wins the men's match, like it. So it must be that there's two belts, right?
Yeah.
They didn't really clarify that.
Yeah, they didn't show two belts. I don't know, but I mean, it's gotta be. It's gotta be.
I would think it must be. I think there has to be one for the men's champion and one for the women's champion to determine who is the ultimate crown jewel champion. So it's another cool prize for them to face off against, or to try to win.
Yeah.
And they did make it clear that between the two champions, or between the four champions, none of them are actually putting their current titles on the line.
Right.
This is for just the belt and the title of the crown jewel champion. I guess either the men's or the women's.
Yeah.
And during this particular segment, Gunter comes out. And Gunter immediately is like, this feels good. I mean, not only were you just crowning me King of the Ring, Triple H, but here in the near future, you're going to be crowning me the new Crown Jewel champion. So he is talking so much smack. And, the crowd kind of reacts poorly to that. And Gunter's like, well, who else would it be? What, Sami Zayn? And the crowd's not feeling that too much, and Triple H he's staying as non-committal as he possibly can.
Yes.
And then they're sort of looking around, and the camera pans over to see Goldberg, and Gunter notices Goldberg sitting in the audience with his son and I guess girlfriend or wife, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And immediately Gunter walks over and addresses Goldberg and states that he would just like to clarify that what he had said about Bill Goldberg being his favorite wrestler to Bret Hart a couple weeks before, that wasn't true. And then Gunter, the crowd reacts to that, and Goldberg's looking like, what the hell, man? And Gunter then goes on to say, look, I'm just busting balls here, but the truth of the matter is this. I hope, Bill, that you're a better father to your son than you were a pro wrestler. And the crowd's like, oh, no, he didn't. And after a little bit of looking around and deciding, and you can see Goldberg's like, what the hell? This son of a bitch. Then Goldberg jumps across the barricade and starts to approach the ring, and all of security appears to immediately keep this from happening.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And so between on the announcer desk side, you have Gunter and Triple H in the middle of the ring, and you've got an angry Goldberg and a mob of security dudes that are all keeping him from getting in the ring with Gunter. Well, since everybody is all looking towards the announce desk, nobody notices in time to see that Sami Zayn has entered the ring, and he just starts to wail on Gunter. And then the security decides that's who they need to break up, so they split them up, and it leads to a security sort of foiled battle between Gunter and Sami Zayn leading into their match. It never really leads to Goldberg spearing Gunter or something, which I think we all would have liked to have seen.
I would have loved it. But I mean, it went, so the security guards went from the, oh my God, they went from that to Nani? They had Sami Zayn coming out of nowhere.
Yeah. And this was a fun spot. One, I feel like they're really trying to build some heat between Sami Zayn, although it's not going to be on any major PLE or anything like that. And I'll get to that in just a second. But the way the spot closes out is you have Triple H and Goldberg in the ring, and they shake hands and kind of half hug. And the crowd is already chanting. They're like, Goldberg, Goldberg. And Goldberg ends up getting onto the second rope in the corner and posing, and the crowd just has a fun sort of reminiscent moment of back, the good old days of Goldberg. Whichever ones, I know that's a contentious thing to say, but whichever ones that you might think, because there's a lot of questions about how he wrestled. But there's no question that the crowd at the time were all about some Goldberg. They liked who's next. So it was fun for the crowd. And to refer back to what I was talking about regarding Gunter and Sami Zayn, there was also a non-match related segment in this Bad Blood where some of the matches that were announced for upcoming WWE programming this week were Jey Uso defending his Intercontinental Championship against Xavier Woods. Here for it. Um,
Mhm.
Sheamus versus Pete Dunne in a Donnybrook match. Here for it.
Mhm.
And the World Heavyweight Champion Gunter versus Sami Zayn. Also here for it. This seems like a relatively large build-up to a match that's going to be on regular television. And so I'm kind of curious where they're intending to go with that. I know what my predictions are, and I think we both kind of agree that it's not going to go Sami Zayn's way.
Yeah. I don't think he's gonna win, and I am okay with that. Honestly, I'm not. I don't know. It's not that I don't think that Sammy don't I don't it's not that I don't think he deserves a belt. I just think maybe he should go for another belt. I don't know. Like he's done this run with Gunther before, and I think that it mainly exists this match so that Gunther could tie up any of his past mistakes, because this is Gunther
Right?
we're
Any
talking
bad
about.
marks on the record?
Right. So in that respect, yeah, I'm here for that match, and I'm hoping that Gunther wins. After that, I don't know what they're gonna do with Sam. I don't know where they're gonna take that. I kind of feel like they're tying up story lines for both Jay and Sammy for certain reasons, and we'll see how that turns out. Maybe I'm just wishful thinking there, but I don't know. I think I made the predictions for Bad Blood the last time we talked about SmackDown, and I was right about all of them. So far, because I
Spoilers.
think no, I'm talking about so far, because I think I said that CM Punk was going to win, right, and he did, and I don't remember what my prediction was for uh for Bailey and Nia, but we'll get into. Oh yes, I do. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna bring it up now. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, so far with even with that match with CM Punk and Drew, I was right. So I'm thinking, hopefully, that they do what I'm thinking they're gonna do with Sammy and even Jay later, which is, for those who may not know, is I think they're going to introduce them back into the Bloodline storyline. Not just yet, not right now. I think we're gonna see Jay defending his title for a little bit, and then we're gonna see Sammy trying to get looking for a reason, roaming through the night to find his place in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're gonna see a little bit of that.
I don't disagree, and I think you make a good point about it, sort of like tying up like any loose ends for Sami Zayn as well, because
Yeah.
I could see a lot of people going, well, Sami Zayn beat Gunter for the Intercontinental belt, so why
Mm-hmm.
not try for the World Championship belt? And so I think what we need to see here is Gunter definitively like erase that was clearly a fluke, right? And
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to hurt Sammy too bad, because he's always portrayed
Nah.
the underdog. Whereas I
Mm-hmm.
think Gunter being portrayed as having lost by any other way than a fluke, especially after the longest run ever with the Intercontinental Championship, would
Yeah.
just bury Gunter. And
I
so
agree.
here, I think it
Yeah.
does better for both, like the stories and the wrestlers and what they're trying to do with Gunter, that Gunter actually just smashed Sammy out of existence in this upcoming match.
Yeah.
And
Now.
reassert that Gunter is that dominant, because especially like consider that he had lost at WrestleMania to Sami Zayn, and then most recently his win against Damian Priest is mildly tainted by the fact that there was interference on the part of Finn Balor, and so
Yeah.
you need to reassert that Gunter is a legitimately strong competitor that doesn't need shenanigans to win battles or keep them.
Yeah.
He will sometimes use them, but it's not like he has to.
Yeah.
And I think that's where they're going with it, honestly.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I mean, and I'm hoping that's where they go after that with Sammy. Which, I mean, or maybe he'll take a break. I don't know. I don't know what the case may be, but maybe take like a month or so. But whatever the case, I think he's going to go and find himself. I think he's at that stage. and then come back to either assist with something or come back and do a bit, do a bits and pieces here and there, like just like random matches, basically. I don't, or maybe like a small heat or feud with somebody that they can run for like a month or two, and then move on to something bigger. I'm thinking that's where they're gonna go.
Well, and I'm also considering, because I feel like you made an incredibly good point here about like tying up loose ends for Jimmy. I'm not sorry, with Jey Uso and Sami Zayn. And I think Sami Zayn's role in all of it might tie into what's happening between Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens right now. And Sami Zayn will have to come do something with, for, or against Kevin Owens. So I think we're about to see some stuff shuffle up. But that's all speculation. And it's good speculation. But I'm curious to see where that's going, because I think you're spot on about, this match with Gunter is going to tie up some things or like end some things so that Sami Zayn is free to participate in what happens next, I think, in the broader Bloodline storyline.
Yeah.
That said, there was also some really cool cameos at Bad Blood, where we got to see different members in the crowd, including Lil Baby, Quavo, Tully Blanchard, Mickey James, Scott Steiner. Mickey James and Scott Steiner were looking far better than I expected them to. Like Scott Steiner, I was worried was going to look like he's like super broken down after the career and everything he had, and he was looking fantastic.
Yep.
We also got to see DDP, and we had help me out. Who was the guy that was doing the stakeout with Cody Rhodes?
Oh,
something Boomin'?
Yeah, Metro Boomin'.
Metro Boomin'. We also got to have a fun little segment with the hostesses of Bad Blood, Naomi, Bianca Belair, and Jade Cargill, who didn't do like a ton of hosting, at least not in the traditional sense of like hosting the show, but more like they were like party hostesses,
backstage.
I guess. Yeah. And so I don't even think it was backstage. I think it was in a skybox where a lot of the WWE talent were, cutting segments and stuff like that in between the matches. And we had a really funny one with Metro Boomin and the three of those ladies. And Chelsea Green shows up, and she apparently still stinks from the dumpster match that happened on Friday Night SmackDown. And she's there, and Piper is with her. And I think Bianca says, Chelsea, you need a shower. You got to go. And Chelsea's like, fine, we're leaving. And Bianca's like, wait. I didn't say Piper has to leave. And Piper's like, I think I'm going to stay here for a little while. And Chelsea just looks outraged, and she storms off. And it was so funny.
Yeah.
So they had some really cool cameos and setups like that. And that's not the only cameo, but I don't want to spoil some things. So that'll be all for now on that. And that kind of brings us into our second match of Bad Blood, which is the WWE Women's Championship match between Nia Jax and Bayley.
Yeah.
And this match is a tough one for me because, like, I liked parts of it, but there were other parts I didn't much care for. There was at least two spots that were very botched. There was a spot where Nia Jax, I think, was attempting to deliver a Samoan drop, like a pop-up Samoan drop to Bayley, and it just looked like a train wreck, like it did not go off correctly, which is weird because Bayley then, like at one point in the match, does a Samoan drop, same idea, same move to Nia Jax, and it goes off flawlessly. So I don't know what the problem was there. And there was another spot in that match where Nia Jax had gotten Bayley into a corner. I think the end result is that Bayley comes up behind Nia Jax, who is standing on the middle rope, and sets her up for a power bomb. And we've seen Bayley do this before. In fact, the announcer said, "Can she do this again?" And she starts to walk out of the corner like she's trying to do or going to do a power bomb, and then it looked like it just sort of fell apart because it's like Nia Jax sort of fell backwards and to the side onto her side, and then Bailey flips out, and they're trying. Then the announcers are like, "Did Nia Jax Hurricane Rana her out of the corner?" And we're like, "No." Nia Jax fell on the ground, and then for whatever reason, Bailey flipped over.
She
So
tried to do a Nia Karana.
Yeah, and the Nia Karana did not work. It
Man.
looked bad. And so those couple of flubs kind of took away from what could have been a really good match, and but otherwise it was because later in the match, after some fantastic other spots, like there was a Bailey to Bailey, they were trading each other's moves a little bit. There was a Bailey to Bailey that Nia threw on Bailey that was fantastic. Like her belly to belly suplex was fabulous. And then later, there's a situation that occurs where the referee somehow ends up in the middle between Bailey and Nia Jax, and Bailey's on the ground, and Nia Jax is reaching over the top of the referee. I'm sorry, I can't remember the ref's name. And she's trying to get at Bailey, and Bailey hits her. And then Nia Jax just falls on top of the ref. And so the ref is flattened. Like, just flattened. And since the ref is down, that sets up a situation for Tiffany Stratton to come running to the ring. And so Tiffany runs into the ring and immediately hits Bailey. It looked to me like she hits Bailey once and runs past her and then comes back and hits her again. And so she's laid out Bailey. And somehow after that second hit, like her briefcase sort of falls off into the corner. And so the ref is coming around and Tiffany Stratton is just sort of standing in the ring, and the referee picks up the briefcase, and seeing that the referee had it in her hands, Tiffany reaches for it. And at this juncture, Nia Jax, who was laying flat on the ring, full on does an Undertaker sit up. Like, she just sits bolt upright to spot what looks like Tiffany Stratton cashing in the Money in the Bank, because the ref and her hands are all on it. And Tiffany then is like, no, it's not what you think, blah, blah, blah. And I think while they're arguing about it, Bailey strikes again, and this sort of results in Tiffany Stratton falling out of the ring while Bailey tries to get a roll-up pin on Nia. And then when that doesn't quite go right, there's a point where Bailey is heading to the top rope, theoretically to drop an elbow on Nia, and Tiffany Stratton like yeets her Money in the Bank briefcase at her.
Yeah.
And that stalls her out just enough for Nia Jax to get to Bailey, who's sitting on the top rope. And she gets to Bailey, puts her on her shoulders, and this was beautiful. She puts her on her shoulders and does a super Samoan drop to her. And I'm like, that's the match right there. Like, it's done. Like, you don't need to annihilate her. You've already obliterated her. But Nia, being Nia, drags Bailey's corpse to the corner and annihilates her anyway, and that is the win for one Nia Jax. And that part, that the finish was super good. The super Samoan drop into the Annihilator was a fantastic and decisive finish. Like, it's not like, oh, you only just barely beat Bailey. No, you crushed Bailey's life out of her. Like, they're digging up parts of Bailey from the basement of that arena today.
Yeah. Yep. To this day. Legend has it.
To this day. Yeah.
Let's see. What was next?
That was a really good match, and you're left wondering what the fallout is because Nia, once she's given her belt and has her hand raised, just storms out of the ring, and Tiffany is just kind of left at ringside wondering about her life and the choices she's made.
Yeah.
But yes, moving on to what is next. That was actually a decent match, save for those couple of botches. Like, and I won't hold that super against them, but I mean, it was a ding on an otherwise really solid wrestling performance between Bailey and Nia Jax. Our next match of the night, and this is one that I was just like drooling to see because I'm such a fan of Damian Priest, is Damian Priest versus Finn Balor in what is essentially just another grudge match. This is Damian Priest and Finn Balor because Finn feels like Damian Priest went against the Judgment Day by trying to be a leader when they're supposed to have no leaders, and sabotaging his attempt at the Universal Championship, just a whole bunch of hot air. And Damian Priest is legitimately pissed off at Finn Balor for stabbing him in the back and costing him the heavyweight championship. And I don't know anyone who would be sympathetic to all of the crap coming out of Finn Balor's mouth. You were clearly supposed to want Damian to destroy Finn Balor and everything he's ever stood for in his whole life.
Yeah.
And this match is an absolute slobber knocker. Go ahead.
No. You're taking the words right out of my mouth. I was about to say that I was not disappointed. The audience was a little. The audience is up on Damian. I don't know how they feel about Finn, or whether or not they even believe that Finn could convincingly beat Damian in a match. I kind of tend to feel like they didn't, but maybe I was reading the audience incorrectly. I feel like WWE has tried their best to build the credibility, the rep of Judgment Day since Damian Priest, ever since they've left, basically. But
yeah,
I mean, Damian, they've had the song and dance before. When they I mean, I don't know. I just feel like even with all the heat they're trying to build for Judgment Day, it was never convincing that Finn could beat Damon. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Even with all of the dudes that he had with him, it was never convincing, not to me, that Finn was going to beat him. They could have cheated, sure. But they tried that. And I think had they won that way, I don't know if that would have done anything for the credibility or the intimidation factor of Judgment Day. So they were kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. Honestly, I just feel like taking both Damian and Rhea out of Judgment Day, no matter how hard they're trying, it's just that's a hit that is felt and will continue to be felt until they find someone else big enough to replace at least one of those two, or they disband. That's just my opinion.
Well, I think they might be going that route, honestly, to add to the roster of Judgment Day, but I don't want to speak to that until our next match.
Yeah.
That said, everything you said about Finn Balor, right? On paper, you look at Damian Priest, he's like 6 foot a billion versus Finn Balor being like maybe 6 foot if he's lucky on a good day. And Finn just doesn't look big enough to deal with Damian Priest. So on its face, you're right. That said, aside from the weird mask that Finn was wearing, he came to the ring actually looking more menacing and more serious than I think I've ever seen him. Like, he did less of the little pointies and any other posturing on the ring. Like, he looked like he showed up to whoop ass today.
That's true.
And then he pops the stupid mask off. I really didn't like the mask. I'm sorry, anybody who did like the mask, whatever. I thought it looked dumb. However, when he took it off, Finn Balor had this really cool bit of face paint that he was rocking, and he was wearing darker and more menacing clothes, except for his sneakers. And he just looked ready to get down to business. Like, he's not here to F around with Damian Priest. Like, he is here to kick the life out of Damian Priest. And to be fair, despite interference from the rest of Judgment Day, Finn Balor like really was bringing it to him in the last few segments of the match. And I mean, I'm not trying to shortchange high spots in this match. There were some real good ones, but the real winner at the end that made me believe that maybe Finn Balor can beat Damian Priest is that Finn Balor went on this like series of hitting coup de grace against a standing or kneeling Damian Priest. Like, he's not even waiting to try and get him where he's down. He is literally jumping on Damian Priest from any and all angles and every corner of the ring. And I'm like, you know, if he hits one more of these, I think Damian Priest is going to get dropped. And
yeah,
so Finn was looking strong there. Finn did not look like a weak opponent that had no business being in the ring with Damian Priest in that moment. And to that end, this match was incredibly successful. Like, this made me think, you know, maybe Finn and Priest could be a good match again. Instead of just like, clearly it's going to be Damian Priest whipping the crap out of him. And so I think they did a really good job there. But ultimately, Finn Balor tries his luck one too many times and lands directly into the waiting massive hand of Damian Priest. And then Damian takes Finn's little coup de grace and sends it far south of heaven. And that gets the win for Damian Priest. But it wasn't like just a complete squash of Finn Balor by any stretch.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
Here is what I believe the direction is going forward. I think they took Damian Priest and Rhea out because they no longer needed the Judgment Day for what Judgment Day was built for, which is a vehicle to help wrestlers who are very, very good get more exposure and get to the top of the card where they belong. And Damian Priest and Rhea obviously belong there. That said, they're there, so they don't need that anymore. So if they want to continue to use the Judgment Day for that sort of a thing, that's why I said I think they're going to recruit some new members in and try and pull some more people up with the Judgment Day. It's just no longer Damian Priest and Rhea that need that help. And in fact, I don't predict. Maybe Rhea still has more to say because whatever happens next. I'll talk about that in a moment. But I think Damian Priest and Finn Balor may be done, and Damian Priest with the Judgment Day might be mostly done, barring some interactions going forward. But I think ultimately Damian Priest and Rhea are about to embark on their own separate directions. So not only do I think they're necessarily not going to be tied up with the Judgment Day specifically, but they're not necessarily going to continue the Terror Twins. I mean, Damian and Rhea will still be friends, but they're going to go off on their own trajectories at this point. That's what I'm predicting. So fantastic match. Really, really made me happy to see. I'm always happy to see Damian Priest, but I was really pleasantly surprised by how strong of a showing Finn Balor had in that match with Priest. And so altogether, a solid match between the two of them. Thumbs up there.
Yep.
Moving on from that match, we are brought to the Women's World Championship match between the current champion, Liv Morgan, versus Rhea Ripley. And this is definitely another grudge match, right? Because Liv Morgan on her revenge tour has stripped Rhea Ripley of a couple few things. The only important one, I think, is the title. Because by all indicators, Rhea doesn't seem too terribly broke up about Dominique going with her. And she's not struggling to try and get him back. She wants that title back, and she wants some payback on Liv Morgan, because who wouldn't want to slap her? Just kidding. Nobody freak out. But Rhea does want to slap her. And so the stipulation of this particular match is that Dominic Mysterio is going to be put in a small shark cage, and then he is going to be elevated. What do you think that was, about 15 feet in the air?
Yeah, about 15.
If that. And so he's freaking out the whole time because apparently he's afraid of heights and he is claustrophobic. So double whammy. Long story short, Dominic Mysterio spends the bulk of this match tucked away in a corner, kind of crying. And Liv and Rhea proceed to have a heck of a match, which largely goes as you would predict. Rhea is just ragdolling Morgan for 90% of it.
Yeah.
So much so that it's almost a foregone conclusion. There's a point where Dominic Mysterio's cage door pops open. And I know the announcers were like, did he pick the lock? And I'm like, how would you pick the lock? He is lied in the far corner crying the entire match. Like, no part of his body was anywhere near the lock. Yeah. But the door pops open, which initially freaks Dominic Mysterio out even more because now he's suspended in a small cage with an open door that he could fall through. And Rhea ends up taking Liv kind of outside the ring to beat her up where, Dominic can see it real good, throwing her into the barricade and whatnot. And then she hits her with an absolutely nasty, oh my goodness, I'm blanking on what Rhea Ripley's finisher move is called.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have it?
Oh, no, I did until you asked me.
Well, anyway, Rhea hits her finish, and just obliterates Liv with it, like out at ringside on the entrance ramp. And so we're like, well, that's it. That's the match. Or it would have been, except Rhea gets distracted from the purpose at hand because she wants to taunt Dominique more. So much so that she rolls Rhea into the ring. Riptide. Thank you. Yeah, she riptided the life out of Liv. And she rolls Liv into the ring and then stops, and we get this by way of the referee cam, asks for a minute to, shore up some business. And I'm sitting, you and I both were like, couldn't you do whatever taunting of Dominic Mysterio you're about to do after you win the match?
Seriously.
Like, couldn't you get the pin, get the championship, and then go taunt Dominic Mysterio?
Or
were you afraid they were going to lower him out of the cage the minute the match was over? I don't know. But it felt really, really forced and weird in that spot because it's like you have the win. Like Liv is dead. But no, Rhea decides to go out there and taunt Dominique some more. And at that point, Dominique falls out of the cage. And it was a pretty mean looking fall. Like I was like, oh snap, he's going head first into the ground. But it turns out that he is attached by something akin to what looked like a bungee cord. So he's just sort of hanging like a piñata by his ankle out of this cage. And that puts him almost at eye level with Rhea. And Rhea starts like beating him up while he can't do anything to really defend himself. And then she goes and gets a kendo stick and beats him up some more. So now he is literally a piñata. Like she is swinging at him like he's got the best candy in him ever, and she wants it. Yeah. And Liv, I think, at a certain point, tried to intercede. If I'm remembering, maybe I'm misremembering. Maybe Rhea took Liv out there to taunt Dom. I can't remember which. And we're like, how is Rhea going to lose this? Because the minute she had Liv beat and did not go for the pin, we're like, oh, Rhea's not winning.
Yep.
We kind of expected that Rhea might not be winning before that, but this was definitely like the demarcator. It's like, oh, she's not winning this because she's wasting time and taunting and all this crap. And so I was like, well, is another member of Judgment Day going to come out or do something while they're playing, Dominic the Piñata and Rhea's basically torturing Liv and Dom. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. And the person that came out was not who we expected. Out of the crowd, almost, it seemed, comes a returning Raquel Rodriguez, who just lays into Rhea and ends up tossing Rhea and Liv back into the ring. And there's some speculation that this was a botch on how the match ended, because then, like, Raquel goes into the ring and hits the Tejana bomb on Rhea Ripley. And of course, then the ref disqualifies the match. But then Raquel tried to pull Liv on top of Rhea, expecting that would get a pin. And so that particular portion seemed a little odd. It's like, you just got the match disqualified. I'm not sure what you're trying to do by dragging Liv on top of Rhea at this point. But then she tries to help Liv up, and Liv is just totally dead weight. And that was how this match ended up being. Liv retains by virtue of a disqualification caused by a returning Raquel Rodriguez, who is helping her friend Liv somehow. Like, back from when I guess they were a tag team together, and potentially Raquel Rodriguez is now a member of the Judgment Day? Question marks.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with everything you said. I think I'm not really sure what the plan is for Raquel, but if she is the big name that they're replacing Rhea with, we'll see. We'll see. It's not like I am against it. I'm here for it. If they can make her look dominant in the ring, because before she left, that was my problem. My initial problem with Rodriguez is, she looked like she had kid gloves on. She was always way too gentle, or they made her the big dumb oof or oaf. And what I mean by that is, she was always distracted by shiny lights, man. Like somebody comes up on the apron, somebody comes down the ramp, and she stops everything, and she has to look in that direction. And what I mean, everything. She would pick people up sometimes. You think I'm kidding, guys? Go back and take a look. She'll have somebody in the air. Somebody's music cuts or starts. She puts the person down and then just walks towards the apron there and just like waits. Like that's the kind of stuff she would do. So
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping they can stop giving her this "which way did he go, George?" Personality, and make her dominant in the ring. Because if you're goofy and a flashy, shiny piece of foil is going to distract you from a match, then I'm sorry, I won't find you threatening. I won't find you intimidating. I don't care how big you are. I know I'm not going to get in trouble. Here's a shiny quarter. Go catch it. I'm out of here. Like it's. It's easy. So, I'm expecting that they're going to do something with her to make her a dominant force if she's going to be in Judgment Day.
I fully agree.
And what I mean by that is they better not put her in a tag team with Liv. I mean, they already got one tag team. Stop it. Liv needs to be dominant on her own. Rodriguez needs to be dominant on her own. I just want to see what they could do if they're going to be in the same group. I mean, and Rodriguez don't have half the personality that Rhea does. I'm not saying that she should. Everybody's different, but I'm saying she's going uphill as far as I'm concerned, because she left kind of weak and she's coming back. And again, she came back and came to the ring, did something, I guess, dominant, but then put Liv, like, just basically dragged Liv onto Rhea, and it's like, did you not hear that bell? Don't you know that this match is over? This ain't a good look already. You already come out of here going, which way did he go, George? Like, we're already starting with this. So, man, let fingers crossed. That's all I can say. I want her to succeed. I thought that she had the ability to be alpha dog dominant when she was in with NXT. You remember the matches that she had then? The matches that she had against Rhea then? Like,
yep.
What up, man? So I don't know. Again, this is another example of WWE bringing people from NXT, changing them, and then going, we don't like this, and then sending them away. I know in her case, she didn't get sent away because of that. She had some medical issues that she had to take care of, and I hope that's cleared up as well. But most of the time, that's what they do, and we cited we cited a long list last podcast, so I'm not gonna recap that right now. But I'm saying this is another example of the NXT to WWE curse.
The NXT to WWE to the main roster not being a benefit, or at least not anytime soon. Yeah. It almost fully kills the momentum they bring in with them from NXT.
It has led to a lot of their detriment. A lot of them get fired after coming from NXT and getting in WWE, and the shtick that they've been put in. Here is your character. Good job. Good luck. This is what they've been given, and if it doesn't work, we gotta let you go. And that's a man. If it's like that, then just let me stay in NXT. Let me just get my check. Let me do my job. Let me be amazing in the ring, and just leave it at that. I would much rather, if I were a wrestler, and I know I'm trying to cut it short or let this go, but if I were a wrestler, I would want if I had a choice between NXT, or basically, I'm not even gonna give it any names. If I had a choice between I could be a wrestler and I could be dominant and look good in the ring and have good matches with other people who are just as good as me, or I can go somewhere else, maybe get more exposure at first, maybe a little bit more money, or be with a more solid long term promotion, but I have to change my shtick. And if it doesn't work, then that's on me. Somehow it's on me. I have to change this. I have to change that. And if it doesn't work, then they're going to change everything that they just said they were going to change into something completely different. But I also have to job from that point on. They don't like that anymore. Okay, they might just let me go. But, at least I'll get more exposure, possibly, maybe, at first. Or I
Yeah,
could just go, or I could just go and wrestle and do what I love to do, wrestle, not have to worry about, this persona change, this set change, like they don't want me doing this anymore. They don't want me doing that anymore. It's too dangerous. So now I got to do this if I'm going to be a superstar for them. I don't know. I think I would pick, if that means that it's a smaller check and a smaller audience. I think I would take A. I would take A over B. That's me.
yeah, no, I'm picking up everything you're putting down. I just to speak more about wrestlers coming from NXT, it doesn't always follow the case. Like some people
No.
get to continue to be who they were. Like Braun Breaker basically was Braun Breaker in both, and it's working for him. And it's like, yeah, because
Yeah.
you didn't change it. Yeah. Poor Raquel, I will say, has had a very odd trajectory. Like she was super good in NXT and very dominant over there. And then they bring her to the WWE. And at first we were like super excited. We're like, oh man, this chick is from NXT and she used to have bangers with like Rhea Ripley. We have high expectations for her. And initially, Ronda Rousey, who was then champion, women's champ, has a match with her. And though Rousey won, it wasn't until after Raquel had beaten her to within an inch of her life and she had to resort to like an armbar, or something like that. But Raquel looked extremely dominant going against the then champion, like right then and there. Not terribly different than Carmelo Hayes coming up and like on his first night having like a match with Cody Rhodes.
Yep.
And then they proceeded to let Raquel languish and just it didn't go anywhere. And then she ended up having, like you said, the skin issue that took her out for a while. So now that she's back and theoretically, hopefully tying in with the Judgment Day, hopefully it's not just the same shtick that they got going on with the CEO and Camille over in AEW. It better not be that Raquel is somehow Liv's big minion. Because man, that's played out, man. That's been played out since Shawn Michaels and Diesel. So Raquel had really better not just be another big dumb voiceless minion like that. That's not going to cause any growth for her at all.
Yeah.
Like she needs to step up. If anything, what would be much, much better would be if Raquel comes back and she's like, Liv, I wanted to help you out. You seem like you're doing so good. And it's this whole keep your enemies closer thing. And we find out that Raquel's like got some serious bitterness towards Liv and wants to get the title off of Liv herself, which is why she interfered. That would be far more interesting. Maybe not entirely interesting and more dominant of an aspect of Raquel than if she's just her Liv's big stupid minion.
Yeah, I agree.
But I'm really hoping that we see Raquel get pulled into the Judgment Day to get the same treatment that helped elevate Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley, because she really can be that good. We just haven't been able to see it because of booking or character or whatever. And so, I really hope this is an opportunity not wasted for Raquel to come in and make an impact.
Yeah. And, the whole thing that even brought her out to the ring Saturday night to help Liv, even the whole premise behind that is annoying, because they did what I don't like from WWE. Did something that they normally do that I just don't like, and that's have a really big competitor team up with a tiny competitor. I,
Mm-hmm.
like, that gets on all of my nerves 96.8% of the time. Sometimes it
Yeah.
works. Sometimes I'm okay with it. The shtick is, it works. It's cute. It's this, it's that. Whatever the case. But man, I get so sick of it. And Raquel did not need it. But they did, you know what I'm saying? They changed the personality. You gotta be this, you gotta be that. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
why. I don't
No,
know why.
to
And
be
then they,
perfectly
they just
honest,
team her up with Liv, and I'm like, ugh.
yeah, I don't want to see that revisited, honestly.
I don't.
If Raquel isn't here and immediately or very soon, like if she's running a deception game on Liv and Rhea just was in her way, cool. But ultimately, Raquel needs to realize that if she's not in that ring and absolutely thinks that any other woman with a championship is in her sights and that the only woman who should be champion at any given time is Raquel Rodriguez. If she doesn't think that way, then she's going to fail. She needs to
Yeah,
come in there and believe that the only woman who has any right to put on the women's championship belt is her.
yeah,
That means if she has to step on Rhea Ripley, so be it. If she has to step on Liv, despite them having had been friends, so be it. Doesn't matter. The people that get to the top are the ones who believe with all of their heart and even their character's heart that no one else should be in that spot but them.
yeah.
So Raquel coming out and being a minion or a tag teamer, no. We need Raquel to show up and
No.
just wreck everything. I'm being perfectly serious here. That is
Yeah, I
what
know.
Raquel needs to be. She needs to be Lady Kane. She needs to be the monster. And she
Hmm.
needs to have everybody running scared of her. The only women that I think should put up a fight between Raquel Rodriguez in the WWE right now are Rhea Ripley, Nia Jax, Jade Cargill, and Bianca Belair. Possibly Naomi. Naomi is great, but the other two women are physically like more imposing. Naomi's
Yeah,
not a small gal by any means, but it has to be at that level. Raquel should be wrestling that tier of talent. She needs to go against the Charlotte Flairs, the Tiffany Strattons, all of the ones who are legitimately athletic, muscular, could power bomb you through anything. That's who she needs to be going up against. And since
yeah,
she's even bigger than most of those women, she needs to be that dominant force, and she can't just be big and stupid.
yeah.
She just needs to be big and I kicked your ass and now I'm the women's champion. Period.
Yep.
She needs to go up to Liv and choke her so hard that Liv calls her daddy. That's what needs to happen. She doesn't need to
Okay.
be
All
Liv's
right.
minion. I'm
Yeah.
I'm just being serious, because
Yeah.
Liv's a little yapping dog. She doesn't need to be subservient to her.
Yeah.
Um, Raquel needs to be the big dog in the yard here.
Yeah.
And she has all the tools to be able to do it. She could stand toe to toe in that ring with Rhea Ripley or any of the other top women. And for whatever reason, her trajectory since she's hit the main roster has had her meander everywhere but there, with the exception of like the first night that she fought Ronda Rousey. So
Yeah.
get her back to being that top of the card dominant monster among women. That's where she needs to be.
Yeah. I agree.
That said, essentially closing in on the fallout, I'm not sure. I feel like Damian Priest, I'm mentioning the Terror Twins here because Rhea just had a match. I think Damian Priest is ready to move away from the Judgment Day. Like, there's really not anything left for him to do there. He whooped Finn Balor's ass, which is what he said he was going to do, and he did it.
Yeah.
I don't think that Rhea is free of the Judgment Day just yet. Not for nothing, Liv still has her belt. And now Raquel Rodriguez, who more than likely will become a member of the Judgment Day at this point, that's at least I'm heavily predicting that, means that Rhea still is going to have a lot of business with the Judgment Day going forward.
Yeah.
And I predict some matches between her and Raquel, and possibly even some, like the title being between her and Rhea, and Liv kind of gets out of that picture. And I'm okay with that because even they can't seem to book it in such a way that Liv looks like she could actually beat Rhea straight. It just
Yeah.
doesn't happen. So that's my prediction for where that's going and the future of perhaps the Judgment Day and the Terror Twins.
Yeah. Now, did Rhea Ripley win that match?
No,
It was a.
no.
Are they saying that Ripley defeated Morgan via disqualification?
I believe since Raquel Rodriguez attacked Rhea and caused a DQ, it means that Rhea won the match, but we know that on a DQ, the title doesn't change. So Liv
Right.
Morgan retains. So it was disqualified because Rhea was attacked.
Okay.
So yeah,
But
I guess she
on a
did win the
technic.
match, which was
Okay.
your opening question. My bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
She didn't win the belt, is what I was
Right.
responding to, but that's not what you asked.
So
So
then, so
yes,
then I wasn't technically right because I did say that Rhea would lose the match, but I mean she didn't win the belt, so to me she didn't win the match. You know what I mean?
right, right. Yes, exactly. Her goal was to try and get the belt, or at least I thought it was, but she had the opportunity to do that and squandered it to taunt Dominic Mysterio.
Yeah.
So she kind of did that to herself. I mean, especially when you're dealing with something like the damn Judgment Day, where anybody anywhere could come out of the woodwork to mess with you. And I don't know, maybe that was Rhea's thinking. She's like, well, I know the rules in WWE, so the guys can't touch me. And I'm dealing with the only female member of Judgment Day, or so she thought.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
it's something
Maybe
along
that.
those lines.
Maybe, but either way, it showed uh, an amateur line of thinking, and that's surprising from Rhea. And I guess they're trying to say she was emotional and hot headed about the whole situation. I get it, so maybe that's why it happened. Um,
Yeah, and but I'm with you. I do kind of hope that Rhea does not go that route, because that was the last meeting between her and Liv had that kind of element to it where Dominic is talking her down from hitting Liv with a chair and disqualifying herself when it's the belt that she's supposed to want, and it's like, Rhea's not this dumb. Let's not make Rhea dumb.
yeah,
Um Now,
yeah,
with all of these circumstances, maybe you could make the argument that even Rhea was too emotionally wrapped in up in it. But I mean, there's only so far we can go with that before you're starting to bury Rhea and make her look like she's dumb, which we just said was a problem with what you had to do with Raquel. They've
yep,
got to come up with some better ways to portray a absolutely much more physically dominant woman having to like lose to somebody like Liv Morgan without either Raquel or Rhea suddenly becoming like completely retarded.
yeah,
Like, that is a huge problem that I have. Like, there's only so many different ways that you can start to see it, right? Like, it's either going to be the ring post. Like, at some point, the big male or big female wrestler in a mismatch is going to run towards the corner and get demolished by the ring post. Like, it's always something like that. And that
yeah,
just tells me that you really need to just stop with the mismatch matches, because it's not as fun as you think it is. Like, bookers is who I'm talking to now, because the ways that you have come up with, like having the bigger woman or man lose to the smaller one, are like they're repetitive and they're stupid. And so you either have to make the bigger person like somehow dumb as hell, or they always have to hit the ring post or something like that. Like, it's just silly.
yeah,
Get more creative with it, or stop booking such physical mismatches. That's
yep,
that's all I got to say about that. Um, that said, I'm really curious to see where we go with the Terror Twins and the Judgment Day going forward from Bad Blood.
yeah. And also, if Rhea and Liv are gonna have a match, I would like for them to have at least one freaking clean match. Instead of having a match that's centered around whether or not somebody's gonna keep the belt, because I honestly don't believe that Liv Morgan could beat Rhea. Okay, so I'm not expecting that, but I want at least give this chick one good match where she isn't um doing something cheaty or gimmicky or goofy. Like I've seen Liv go, and the chemistry between Ripley and between Rhea and Liv is good. It's there. So ever since they were, I guess, tag team partners, it's been there. So I feel like both ladies are deserving of a match that's just a no holds barred. Let's balls to the wall, go. Let's have a go at it. Like Osprey versus Kyle Fletcher type, shit. Let's have a match.
Yeah.
and then just call it a day after that, instead of Liv doing this goofy laugh and shaking her ass, and Rhea being enraged because she took her like, just please, can we just stop all that bullshit and just have a good match?
I know we've mentioned it before, but I think you're making a strong case for the women needing more than the heavyweight titles to fight for. Because there is a whole block of women that are in the like 5'10" to 6 foot straight up that are on another level. Like those are heavyweight women. From the women that are like 5 foot to 5'4", and that's a whole nother category. And it's like, or maybe I know that relegates it to height, but height usually correlates with weight and size. Not always. But what I'm trying to say is that you have definitely two tiers of women. There's women that are fighting in the heavyweight category, and then there's women like Caden Carter and Katana Chance. They're like 5 foot nothing. Lyra Valkyrie, also not that big. Liv Morgan, not that big. I could go on, but it's almost like there's a set of women that are slight of build and short of height, or some combination therein, and then they're having to compete with like Jade Cargill and Rhea Ripley and Raquel Rodriguez and Nia Jax, and it's just a mismatch. And so you have to have these like weird ways that we can make this look like it's anything other than a slaughter, because we want to somehow pretend that like 50 pounds of weight and half a foot of height isn't going to matter as much as it does.
I agree.
So the women really need like a secondary set of titles, so that the women that are like in that one category can actually have matchups that are good for them, and the women that are super like ginormous Amazons that look like power lifters can also, fight for their sets.
But let me ask you, why is it so noticeable in the women's matches and not in the men's? Because small guys go against big guys all the time. And sometimes those small dudes pull it out. Sometimes they win. And it's a believable win, especially in AEW. But I mean, it happens in WWE too. So what's the difference? Why is it so hard to make these matches believable or sellable when it's a big lady versus a smaller one?
Well, let's take a couple of small guys versus a couple of big guys. Let's take Johnny Gargano, not a big guy. Still looks like he has enough muscle mass to knock somebody the hell out. Even at the smallest, some of these smaller guys, like maybe not Tozawa. Tozawa is borderline, right? But a lot of the smaller guys are not so small that I don't believe them as athletes, whereas some of the women are so small and so like they don't have any muscle on them that I would struggle to believe that they could perform anything they're doing in the ring without all of the help from their opponent, let alone that they could defeat an opponent who looks like they could body slam them through the universe. And so smaller men still have orders of magnitude more muscle mass on them. They have knockout power. They've got the ability to actually pick up some of these bigger guys and throw them. So the difference between the smaller man and the much bigger man is not that like we haven't gone from you are incapably small to now capably big. We go from you are absolutely capable, but this dude is a freak. Like this dude is 6'5", 6'6" and up, or sometimes 7 foot and up. So that dude is way more powerful on average than anything close to the average of men. Right? Like people in those height ranges are much more rare. They just are attracted more often to the WWE. It's like, the average height in the NBA is going to be no way to gauge the average height of human beings around the world.
Yeah.
So a lot of the average guys still have enough power to make you believe what they're doing. Whereas several of the average women don't look like they could lift anything. We were just mocking like Michin for carrying out a aluminum foil trash can with 2 kendo sticks like she was doing the most. That's the difference. That was a big deal for someone as like small as her, I guess, to be doing. So the difference is that these guys who are clearly athletes are going against super freaks. Whereas in the women, it's women who like their super freak athletes are maybe good enough to contend with like a smaller man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the women that are beneath them don't look like they could actually do any of what they're doing in the ring without all of the help from the opponent. So there's a verisimilitude there. Like they're just so much smaller that it's like, could you knock somebody out like ever? You know, like you'd break your own arm. So that's what I'm saying is like we've got to get away from this idea because it's unrealistic and it doesn't look good that these super tiny women who have not an ounce of muscle on their whole frame are going to be doing any damage outside of like a street fight where you get the opportunity to hit people with chairs.
Yeah.
And even then, you know, even did you hit them hard enough with the chair, you know?
Yeah.
And I would really struggle to see like I don't know, Katana Chance go against Nia Jax and make me believe that she would do anything because she's the same size as Nia Jax's leg. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's just not conceivable. So that I think that's my take on why it's so different that when a somewhat smaller guy who's only maybe 6 foot is having to face off against a guy who's 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", or even 7 foot isn't as completely unbelievable as the difference between a 5'2" girl versus like a 6 foot woman. It's night and day because somewhere in there you jump the gap between like looking like you can't lift up anything versus actually having some killing power on you.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Well, moving on from that, we come to the main event of the night. Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns versus Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu. And this was a pretty legitimately good match, although you were complaining at the beginning about all the posturing. Like it seemed like it was a little too slow of a start for you because you had Roman and Cody were arguing right at the beginning, not viciously arguing, but having a lengthy discussion about who should start the match, and it finally ends up being Cody. And right at the beginning, I believe it's Cody versus Jacob. And, you know, they exchange a few moves, and then Jacob tags in Solo. And so is this very dramatic, like Roman reaches in to get tagged, and Cody like takes a really long time to hold his hand up and dramatically make the tag. So there was some of that, and I don't know. You're either here for it or you're not. Like you either appreciate that level of drama or you're like, get on with it already, you know. And after a bit, we were like, get on with it already.
Yes.
But we do eventually end up with like there's a first run in the ring with Roman Reigns, where the match really truly starts. And he's taking on Solo, and then Solo tags in Jacob, and then Roman kind of gets waylaid by Jacob, and then you tag in Cody, and Cody is kind of bringing it back, and they're doing pretty good. And for a long time at this point, like Roman can't get back into the match, and Cody is just getting brutalized by the Bloodline because after a bit they got the one up on him until finally, Cody is able to make a tag to Roman. And this, I feel, starts to set up like kind of the final segment here in this match.
Yeah.
And Roman is bringing it to him. And I'm trying to remember the specifics of the match now. But there comes a point where it's looking good for Roman and not so good for Solo and Jacob. And you end up with the Gorillas of Destiny, Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa coming out. And we're like, oh, of course.
Yeah.
And this allows Solo to kind of get the one up. And it looks like Solo's about to take it to Roman Reigns when Solo looks back over his shoulder and then does almost like a double take and points out there. And what we hadn't noticed until that moment is that there's someone standing in a hoodie between Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa, and they haven't noticed either until Solo points it out. And then they turn to look, And the person in the hoodie proceeds to super kick and like just wail on both Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa.
Yeah.
And
It was
this allows Roman to recover since Solo wasn't paying attention, and Roman hits Solo with a massive spear. And this is after at one point Cody Rhodes had gotten Jacob Fatu kind of beat up and set him on an announce table, and then kind of got to the top of the ring post with Jacob on the announce table, and he turns and looks at Roman, and he kind of gives him a salute and then does this huge dive, which more or less for the last portion of this match takes Cody and Jacob out of the picture, which is why it's just Roman and Solo and like Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa and Mystery Man. And after Roman hits Solo with the spear and secures the victory, maybe a little before that, we figure out who it is. Long story short, the Mystery Man is Jimmy Uso, and the crowd is like, because he's back. Yeah. And he helps Roman secure the victory. And while Roman's getting Solo pinned, he's rolled into the ring and he's in a corner and he's like, kind of praying to his tribal chief. And so we have this wonderful like reunion of Jimmy, who I couldn't make out all of what he was saying, but it was something like I was always loyal to you, my tribal chief, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And so they secure the win, and they're hugging and happy reunion, and then they notice that Cody's standing there in the corner. He's rolled himself in with the undisputed belt. And we have Roman kind of give a longing glance at the undisputed title belt before him and Jimmy step out of the ring and start heading to the back.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's at this point, as they're heading to the back, the camera's kind of following, that we find out that the bloodline is now completely jumping Cody Rhodes. And we hear Jimmy saying, "Oos, you gave your word. You said you had his back." And so there's this moment of indecision, and the crowd's like, "Oh, what you gonna do, Roman?" Huh?
Oh, no, I was saying, yeah. I was saying, yeah. I was going with what you were saying.
And so then Roman finally like starts running back towards the ring with Jimmy in tow, and they clear out the bloodline and get Cody's back, because he had given his word that he would have Cody's back. And Cody is in the corner trying to recover from the ass whooping. And Roman sees the belt, more or less at this point, kind of between him and Cody on the mat. And Roman slowly goes over and picks up the belt. And Cody sees him pick up the belt and stands up to stand across from him. And Roman hands him the belt. And the crowd just loses it, because like Roman Reigns is being completely honorable. And it was in this moment that like Roman and Jimmy and the OG bloodline are now super faces. And then they go ahead and leave the ring. And no, they don't leave the ring. They stand there for a bit and soak up that particular moment. And then the final boss's music starts to play. The Rock. And nobody was ready for this. Everyone turns and looks, including all three of the men in the ring, and they're like, "Nani? What?"
The audience explodes.
Exactly. And the final boss slowly walks out with the People's Champions championship on his shoulder. And he just sort of stares at him and then gives him the people's eyebrow. And all three of the other men are like, "What's going on? Is he with you? What is this?" Like they really don't have any idea why the final boss has stepped out. And nor do any of us, because all the final boss does is he steps out onto the entrance ramp stage, stares at him, gives him the people's eyebrow, and then he holds up his hand and counts 1, 2, 3, and then his music cues up again, I guess, after it had gone off, and then he just leaves. He didn't say a word. And so I guess he was putting somebody on notice, but who? Like, who was he there for? And that was how we close out WWE Bad Blood. Roman Reigns secures the victory for Cody Rhodes, then does right by Cody Rhodes, because he gave him his word. He
Yeah.
also secures the fact that, him and his OG bloodline and Jimmy and all that are now the faces of the bloodline story. And then
Yep.
we get a mean mug from The Rock.
And I feel like I don't know. I was here for all of it. I was concerned that Solo and Jacob would kind of get, what's the word I'm looking for? Outshined words, I guess. But I feel like they held their own. I thought Solo looked good, but it was really more about Jacob. And I hate to say it, but Jacob kind of did outshine Solo. And I don't know if there's anything that could be helped for that. Like, I think people were right to be concerned about it. But I think if what I'm thinking is going to happen is going to happen, then I think The Rock is going to help a lot with that side.
Yeah, I'm super curious. Like, there's a couple of things that I'd like to address here. One, has anybody noticed that the undisputed champion is the least significant portion of the wheel in this? Like, Cody Rhodes is
Yeah.
the undisputed champion, and he's totally like the third wheel of this whole exchange. Like,
Yeah.
everyone
Yep.
is watching what the bloodline is doing, and they're like, "Oh, hi, Cody." You know?
Yep. Oh, Cody's here, guys. Okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah. Um, so I don't know. Maybe The Rock will make that relevant. Like, didn't he leave the last time he was here at WrestleMania? Didn't he leave and say, "I'll be back to go after that belt"? Like, he cut this like a promo where he gave something to Cody Rhodes, and he promised that he's coming back for that belt. It was the one. It was the weird one where he's like, "Can I touch it?" And we're like, "What?" Cody's
Yeah.
and Cody's like, "Oh, can I touch that one?" And they're like,
Yeah.
"Sure." And so they
Belts,
swapped
guys.
belts.
Belts. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and then they
Phew.
gave each other their belts back, and I'm sorry, The Rock was like, "I like that belt. I like how it feels." And Cody didn't say anything. So screw your stupid the People's Championship. He was unimpressed. Um, so maybe it's that. Maybe The Rock is coming back to call in that card that he left way back at WrestleMania. So it's going to be him versus Cody. Um, but I ultimately think that it's going to be I ultimately think that The Rock will be party to, or ultimately the leader of, we'll come to find out, the alternative bloodline led by Solo Sikoa. And it's setting up for Rock Roman, but with a much more natural like way that we arrived there, as opposed to last year where they were like, "This is the new best match that we're having at WrestleMania," and everyone's like, "What?" You know?
Excuse us.
Squeeze
Yeah.
me. So
Squeeze me.
I just there's some, I have so many questions, I guess, is where I'm at with that one.
Yeah.
But I'm hyped to see what the answers are. Like, I'm super interested again.
Yeah.
Um
Yep. That's it. We've had a love-hate relationship with this bloodline storyline since, gosh, it's been a minute. Like, so sometimes we're like, "Oh, this is so good," and then others were like, "Screw this! It's dumb. We hate it." And now we're back. We're back with it.
yeah, I agree. Like it stalls out. Like, there's been times where this bloodline thing, there's more dragon ass than a dragon with a Brazilian butt lift. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm glad whenever it has forward momentum. And the return of Jimmy Uso, I feel, kind of got a little bit. I think the crowd noticed, but it may have been overshadowed slightly by how much all else was kind of going on. But I'm okay with it. Like, I'm super hyped to see what they're gonna do with Roman and Jimmy, and hopefully we'll see the return of the Wise Man. And kind of to speak to what we were talking about earlier, and the point you made about, like, freeing the schedules up for Jey Uso and Sami Zayn, they might have something to do with what's going on over here with Cody and KO and the Bloodline.
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine that they're not going to attempt to get Jey Uso back involved in this.
Yeah. I
So
mean, it'd be crazy not to. This is family business. You know what I mean? So And if Roman and Jimmy are on the same page, and Roman is the face, maybe even if Roman does some, I don't know, apologizing for being somewhat of a see you next Tuesday for a little bit, then maybe they can get Jay on board. And if Jay's on board, then if they needed Sammy would be on board.
Yeah. And I can just totally imagine a segment where Jay is returning to the bloodline and Jay says something and he's like, yeet. And Jimmy's like, no, 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 man. Remember the tribal chief said no yeet. And then the tribal chief says, well, now hold on. Yeet. And then everyone's like, what? Yeet. And everybody just loses their shit with the yeet.
The yeetabration.
And that would be totally Usi at that point.
Yeah, absolutely Usi. Complete Usi.
So, having arrived here with all of the coolness that was Bad Blood, what is your rating of WWE's Bad Blood 2024?
Oh, top tier. It was good. It was fun. The weakest match to me was Bailey and Nia. And that's because there were just so many flubs that I couldn't excuse it, man. I know that you said your piece about it. I'm not trying to beat a dead horse here or go back an hour ago, but I'm just saying it was surprising. There were a surprisingly high amount of flubs in that for a Bailey match. But even though I say that that's the weakest match, I mean it wasn't terrible, okay? I mean, it was good. It was decent, but I was just surprised by the flubs. And I'm not sure who is to blame, if anyone is. Maybe they just had an off night. Maybe it was. I mean, because Nia was trying some shit that I've never seen Nia do. You know what I mean? Like the Nia Karana or whatever that was.
The Nia Karana, yeah.
The one what she tried to do off the corner there on Bailey. That's ambitious. I mean, absolutely. And hey, keep trying that. You know what I mean? Keep trying it. And maybe one day, whenever you're up there, you do it. But I mean, it was ambitious and insane, and it looked off, but it was still. I'll give her credit for the balls it took to do it. Especially something so out of your element on, essentially a live event like in front of thousands. That's ballsy. So I'll give her credit there. Ever since she's come back, I'll give her credit. Ever since she's come back, she's looked good in the ring. So I'm just gonna say maybe it was an off night. Maybe she was nervous because of the stuff that she was gonna be doing. Whatever the case, I'll give them that credit, and I'll say even though it was the weakest match for the night, I'm not trying to say it was horrible. It was just out of all the other matches, it was just the one. I have to say it was the weakest just because of the flubs. That's it.
Yeah, I tend to fully agree on all counts. WWE's
but overall,
Bad Blood,
good. Yes. Yeah.
WWE's Bad Blood was absolutely top tier. And I agree with you. There were some flubs in Nia Bailey, but ultimately a good, strong finish. And each of these matches did what I think they were intended to do. Hell in a Cell feels like it is the final match between CM Punk and Drew McIntyre. Like there is nothing left to be said between these two men with their fists at this point.
Yeah.
It's been said.
At this point, it's you'll hear from my lawyer. That's where we're at now. I mean,
yes. So that blood feud over, and I feel similarly that Damian Priest and Finn Balor said everything they needed to say to one another, and it did a wonderful job of closing that rivalry out, and also making Finn look very mean. Like in a big part of that, not that Finn didn't look good the entire match, but Finn looked transcendent when he was hitting Damian Priest repeatedly with coup de grace while Damian was trying to get to his feet. And then, that was a good Damian finally got the one up with the South of Heaven. That was fantastic. Both men looked incredibly strong. and I feel like it was a great match. Then you have the Women's World Championship match, which did some great storytelling and introduced us to a returning Raquel Rodriguez. So while that one doesn't feel as closed out as some of the other ones, it did leave us with enough questions to build intrigue, which is just as good.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see where we go from there with regards to Rhea Ripley, Raquel Rodriguez, and Liv Morgan, and how, you know, that affects that whole scenario.
Yeah.
And then in the closing match, yeah, I mean, we just got done talking about it. So enough said there. It was amazing. It was amazing for the storytelling it did. Everybody wrestled a solid match. No complaints. Absolutely top tier for WWE Bad Blood.
Yep.
That said, I want to thank everyone for joining us on this podcast. And I hope that you will join us for the next one. Because, as I want to say, wrestling is always better when it's top tier. On that note, I'm going to go ahead and roll the outro.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Top Tier Wrestling. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the latest AEW and WWE news and shows. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. Follow us on social media for updates and to join the conversation. Until next time, everyone, remember, wrestling is always better when it's top tier.